All right, hi friends. You should have just finished watching the quick little video on what living things need to grow. What are the 4 things that living things need to grow? Today we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our science workbooks, okay? All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about those 4 things that living things need in order to grow. And I know that we've talked about them before with plants, but today we're going to talk about them for animals. What do animals need? And they're still the same thing. So let's think back to the video and let's think back to the things that living things need in order to live and grow. Okay, what was one of those things? They need water. Very good. What else do they need? They need air. Very good. They needed the sun for energy. Very good. And they need a safe place to live. Exactly. So living things need food, water, air, and a place to live. Okay? All right. What happens if a living thing doesn't have one of those things? Right? They probably wouldn't live anymore. Think about us. If we didn't have air or food or water or a safe place to stay, now our shelter or place where we live is different than animals. So today we're going to talk about animals and we're going to talk about the kind of shelter that they may need in order to live and grow. And when we think about air, water, food, and shelter, that repeats for living things. We need that all the time, like a pattern. It goes around and around and around and it doesn't stop. And if something happens to that pattern, then the living thing gets affected by that. So the things that we need, animals, plants, and people, in order to live and grow, is called a pattern. We need food, air, water, and shelter. We need those 4 things and we need them to go continuously around and around for us, okay? All right, today what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to open up to your science workbook and I'd like you to open up to page 90 in your science workbook. And you should see the picture of the orangutan right there. And you should see a baby orangutan right there with it, okay? All right, let's take a look at this picture of the orangutan, okay? All right, up at the top it says, what do animals need? So that's what we're going to talk about in this chapter. If you take a look at this picture of the orangutan, what in this picture is telling you, giving you evidence, means proof, that this orangutan needs food? That it needs one of those things that we said is so important to living things. What evidence or proof do you see in this picture that tells you that that living thing needs food, that orangutan? Very good. If you look in its mouth, he has all those bananas in his mouth. He's eating those bananas. That's telling you that that's your proof that this living thing needs food in order to live and grow. Okay, so that's one of the things that we've talked about. All right. Then we also just said air, water, and shelter are the other 3 things, so along with food, okay? All right, now what I'd like you to do is let's take a look at this picture up here where you see the raccoon, okay? All right, so this raccoon, put your finger on the raccoon for me. All right, so the raccoon, right? The raccoon, a living thing or a non-living thing? Very good. The raccoon is a living thing. It grows and it becomes bigger, and it breathes, and it moves. So it is a living thing. Now, knowing the 4 things that living things need in order to live and grow, food, air, water, and shelter, let's take a look at the raccoon in this picture and see if we can find those 4 things in its environment where it lives, in order to help it live and grow. And let's see if it's a pattern of things that it can find so that it can live and grow. Okay, so the first thing, let's talk about food. All right, well, let's take a look at the raccoon. What would a raccoon eat? Probably a lot of greens, right? Okay, so let's take a look on the picture. Do we see something that would give the raccoon food? Very good. The bushes would, right? The leaves and things like that. Okay, so we figured out. So one thing we found in its environment, it has food. Okay, now we have 3 more we have to find. Food, air. Air. Where would the air be? Very good. Up here. And they also talked about the sun, because the sun gives us energy, right? The sun is important to the raccoon because the sun helps this plant grow. In order for this plant to grow, it needs the sunlight. In order for the raccoon to live and have food, it needs this plant. So the plant really needs the sun, and the raccoon needs the plant. So the sun is very important to the raccoon and to the plant, because without the sun, the plant wouldn't grow and the raccoon wouldn't have its food, right? So the air and the sun is very, very important in order for that raccoon to be able to live and grow. The sun isn't making the raccoon grow, but the sun is making the food grow that the raccoon does need, okay? All right, so there's food and air and sun. What was the other thing we said? Water, very good. Can you find water? Is there water in this environment for the raccoon? Very good. There's the water right over there, right? Okay. And it looks like it's like maybe a little lake or a pond or something. So there's water there. Now, where does the water come from? If you said rain, very good. That's part of the cycle. So it would, if the rain falls, it falls into this. So it continues to give water for the raccoon to be able to drink, right? Remember we said it has to be a pattern. Food, air, water, and shelter. Those things have to keep happening over and over again. If the pond all dried up and there was no rain, that raccoon wouldn't be able to live because it didn't have its water, right? So it has to continually be refilled by the rain, by the water cycle, where the water comes from the clouds, from the rain, and comes down again and then dries up and goes back up into forming the clouds. So we have to have that cycle. We have to have that routine, that pattern of rain so that it gets its water. All right. So we said food, air, water. There was one more we need. Shelter, very good. Is a raccoon shelter going to be the same shelter that we have? No, it's not, right? And in the video, they showed different kinds of shelters. Not the same shelter we would have. But where in this picture might be a home for a raccoon? Okay, maybe up in a tree, right? Maybe up in a tree. Maybe a hole in the tree. Yeah, maybe they could hide in there. How about the log right here? Could a raccoon? Look at that log. It's kind of burrowed out, right? Dug out. Maybe the raccoon could live in there. So are there a couple places here that the raccoon could find a home? A shelter? Very good. All right, so if I look at this picture of the raccoon, does the raccoon get all 4 things it needs in order to live and grow? Food, air, water, and shelter? It does. And can those things continue to happen in a pattern for the raccoon in this environment? Yes, it can. Very good. If something were to happen to that pattern, would that be good for the raccoon? No, it wouldn't. So that raccoon needs that pattern to continue happening. Food, water, air, and shelter. Very good. All right, let's go down and take a look down at the bottom, okay? All right. Think about what an animal needs to live. Okay, think about any animal that you've ever seen before. You can pick any animal you want. I'm gonna pick, I love giraffes. So I'm gonna pick a giraffe, okay? All right, thinking about my animal, I'm gonna look at these 3 pictures down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm thinking about my animal. I want you to think about your animal. And let's take a look at the first picture. This is food. Now, if I think about a giraffe, does a giraffe need to have food to live? My giraffe does. Does your animal need to have food to live? Yes, it probably does. If it's an animal, it needs food. So we're going to circle food because that's what an animal needs, okay? Let's go to the second picture. That is Water, very good. Okay, I'm thinking about my animal. I'm thinking about my giraffe. Are you thinking about your animal? Do our two animals need water? Yes, they do. Very good. So we're going to circle water. All right, let's look at this last one. Sun. Okay. I'm thinking about my giraffe. My giraffe likes to eat greens off of trees. Well, trees need what in order to grow? They need sunlight to grow. If they don't get sunlight, are they going to grow green leaves? No, they are not. So my animal definitely needs to have that sun in order to live because it needs the plants to grow. Now you might be thinking of an animal like a tiger or a lion that is a meat eater. Okay, they eat other animals for their food. Well, the animals that they eat may eat greens like bushes and trees and things like that. And if they don't have trees or plants or leaves to eat, then they are not going to live. And if they aren't going to live, then that means that your meat eater, like your tiger or your lion, isn't going to have food to eat. So, any animal, whether it eats meat or it eats plants, it needs the sun because somewhere in its pattern of air, food, water, and shelter, that sun plays a very important part. It might not grow the food that your animal eats, like a tiger or a lion, but it does grow the food for the animal that your animal, lion or tiger, would eat. So somewhere, anywhere in their pattern, they need that sun, okay? All right, good job, my friends. All right, we're gonna go ahead and turn the page and we're gonna look at what people need, okay? So we talked about what animals need, air, food, water, and shelter. Well, people need the same things and we need them in a pattern, just like those animals do. Air, water, food, and shelter. We need those in a regular pattern. But our shelter's a little different. Usually it's a house or an apartment or a condo. It could be, but it's basically a shelter is a safe place for us to live, and that's what we need, okay? So let's take a look. So just like we looked for those things that animals need, we're going to look in the picture and see if we can find them in the picture for our people, okay? So let's take a look at this first picture. This where it says food, okay? Look at the picture of the boy. Can you find the food that he's getting so that he can live and grow? Very good. So let's take our pencil and let's draw a line from the word food up to where he's eating his food, right? Okay. All right, so we found food. Now let's go. And this one is water. Water. Let's look at the picture. How is the little boy getting water in that picture? Very good. Right out of the water fountain, right? So let's draw a line up to that water. Okay. See a pattern here? Okay, let's go down here. Place to live. So that's our shelter, our place to live. Just like the raccoon needed either that hole in the tree or maybe that log to live in, we need a shelter. Let's take a look at this picture. Where in our shelter, where in this picture are we getting our shelter? Very good, in this house, right? So we're going to draw a line up to the house. Very good. And in the last one, it says air. All right, so we have our food, water, shelter, and we need air. Where would you see evidence or proof, like the bananas in the orangutan's mouth, that she has air? Where would you see that air? Very good. Have you ever blown one of these in the summertime where you blow on it and the white whiskers go all over? Well, that's a great way to show evidence or proof that you have air. So you have the air that you need. So just like the raccoon on the page before has its air, food, water, and shelter, we show evidence of having those things too and needing those things as well. Okay? All right, my friends, you did a great job. Animals need food and water, air and shelter in a regular pattern, meaning repeating, just like humans do. We need air, food, water, and shelter in a regular pattern, okay? All right, my friends, you did a great job today in your science, and I will see you tomorrow.